Now I don't even have a pen. Not that it was ever, but
All right.
it was more important than I thought.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Economic Development Committee meeting Tuesday, September the 24th. Here at Wildwood City Hall in the community room. Good welcome to everyone who is here and anyone who may be participating or viewing remotely. First on the agenda is a call to order. Ms. Lobeck, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell. Here. Councilmember Galani.
Here.
Councilmember Hopper. Councilmember Jaxi. Councilmember Mabry.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon. Here. Councilmember Preston.
Here.
Ms. Lobeck, we have a couple people that may have joined.
Councilmember Galani. He's
Here.
All right.
And Mr. Hopper as well.
Hopper.
Good.
Sorry.
Mr. Hopper as well.
Hopper as well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Lobeck. Next, we will have an approval of the minutes from the August 20th meeting. Does anyone have any questions, suggestions, comments regarding those minutes? Seeing as how there don't appear to be any comments, I will entertain a motion for approval. Ms. Dodwell,
So moved.
and second by Mr. Mabry. Thank you very much. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the August 20th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Minutes approved. Next, we come to public comment. I don't see anyone here in the room for public comment. Do we have anyone online for
Mr.
public?
Chair, no one's online at this time.
All right, no one is online, so we will skip over public comment and go on to discussion items. And first of all, we have for information update on business changes and other business news. For that, I will turn things over to the city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple quick updates tonight. Wanted to give a quick shout out. We now have a kind of a business connection e-newsletter that we're running through our website. It's intended to be a quarterly e-newsletter to promote some events, but also good updates for the business community. If you look at your agenda, you would see a URL that gives you a link to the first edition that we sent out. We'll go ahead and send that as needed, but that is kind of an idea and starting to look towards the future for the normal e-newsletter. This is the type of styling and concise language that we'll be looking to use. So good things to come. On top of that, we also just want to give a quick shout out for any businesses listening or watching this at a later date. We do have the holiday tree lighting ceremony coming up on Saturday, December 7th, 2024 from 3 to 5:30 p.m. I'll be right there off Plaza. It doesn't seem that we'll have the Village Green just yet ready to have that go on there, but we will be planning quite a bonanza in 2025. Two real cool things that businesses can do. They could set up a booth to participate in the holiday shopping corral that we're putting together. And then also they can decorate a tree over there off Plaza. So either or they can contact the director in the Parks Planning and we'll get you set up. Quickly on a couple business updates, Tai Chi Massage Spa located at 17193 New College Avenue. They've leased the space. They have not officially opened yet, but they're doing some minor modifications on the interior and they should be opening soon. Some bad news, Micro Meadows located at 2422 Taylor Road, just opened up back in 2022. They have officially closed. So in this case, from what we've been able to gather, the department's been able to gather, they had lost their source of their microgreens. So the main product, obviously their salads and the wraps, but the actual vegetables that they were able to get them that looked they were very good. Actually, we can all probably attest to that, but they lost that provider. And at that point, they didn't really have the materials to make a sale. So at this point, they will be looking to sublease the space because I think they're about 2 years out of a 5-year lease. So in this case, right now, though, they are currently closed.
Have they considered reformatting the business in any way, shape, or form?
So in this case, we made a couple attempts to reach out to them. We did see that they went out of they were at Celebrate Wildwood serving up like they did in 2023, but they withdrew themselves from that. It seems as if they've kind of gone off the grid just a bit.
Okay. All right.
But we can give an update once we hear back from them to kind of see what might be their idea. Obviously, with them wanting to sublease, they obviously still have that space for a couple years. Could be looking to do something else with it.
It's a prime spot,
It
so.
And it was honestly, I heard really good things from residents, that the food was great. So they have a lot going for them. But it was kind of a unique kind. You gotta have the micro in the meadows. But then one last quick update, there's a couple other items, but well, actually I'll go over two. So Letty Lou's, it is not closing. If you had heard, there were some online remarks that might have indicated that they would be closing. That is not the case. The department's reached out to Arnold Jones and they have reached out to the property, the actual owner of the business, and they have no intention. They were just on vacation. So they are still open and they're located at 17209 New College Avenue. And then last but not least, Lucky Dog Central, located at 16917 Manchester Road. They opened up yesterday. They'll be opening for a brief period of time. And the department actually spoke with them at Celebrate Wildwood over the weekend, and they plan to close up shop for a second after 1 week of operation and then work on feedback, maybe some changes that they would do to enhance the experience. But they'll be looking to reopen officially in 3 weeks after that. So 4 weeks from now, 3 weeks after they temporarily close. So good news there. Once they open for good, we'll look to have a large business ribbon cutting ceremony for them. But that's really it. That's all we got today, but department's available for any questions.
Super. Question for you on the tree lighting, which is on December 7th. Would it be appropriate for us to try to include some type of brief mention of Pearl Harbor on that particular day, or as part of that ceremony, maybe having veterans group or something of that sort, do something? I'm just sort of throwing it out there for general discussion.
Personally, the department would not be opposed to that whatsoever, and that is a pretty significant date. We could maybe hold a moment of silence or something more respectful.
Something like
At the
that.
onset. We could definitely have a microphone out there.
Yeah, I don't know if the rest of the committee has any particular comments about how they feel about that or not, but that was just something I thought of. And then regarding the economic newsletter that you send out quarterly, does you solicit comments for that letter from the business community, or do we just sort of develop that in-house with the information we think is appropriate for that newsletter, or what's the?
So typically it's going to include, and Gina, if you have anything to add on it, please feel free, but we're gonna be including things like sponsorship opportunities, things like holiday tree lighting, but also Celebrate Wildwood, those type of opportunities, along with ribbon cuttings, things that are really more information available to us. We can always send one out. We could send one out today if we needed to, if we had a bunch of things we wanted to report on. Really, it's more so compiling updates that would be beneficial to the business over a small duration of time. As we see that list get a little bit more full, we'll send that out to clear the plate, if you will. But, you know, we're gonna probably mention Celebrate Wildwood in a couple of the newsletters next year. So it's really more so what information is available to us. But at the Wildwood Business Forum, things along those lines, updates that we're doing as a city to react to them, and we have a couple items tonight, there will be updates on those types of things as it makes its way through the legislative process.
And where do you see that on the website?
It wouldn't be on the website. It's
Okay.
something you get direct via email. So in this
Okay.
case, just like our e-newsletter for
Are you including any of the members here?
the members are not currently on it for the test drive, but we can add you to them.
And it is available on the website under the Economic Development tab as past communications. And you can
Okay.
subscribe
'Cause I
as
was
well.
looking over there and I didn't find it, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means I didn't find it.
Very good. One other question, Sammy's Southern Eatery, do we have a rough idea of when?
So they're planning on painting the exterior. They have made some repairs to the water heater, but at this time, there's a lot of work to be done. They do not know when they'll be open.
And I know we've discussed this before, but Good News Brewing Company, what's?
Spring, summer 2025. So that was discussed very recently, their site development plan. That should be moving pretty quickly now. Main thing is they're gonna be trying to pull permits sometime before the October 31st deadline, and then they'll start construction. They'll probably do some prep work over the winter time, but they can't actually do major work until the spring. So I would say kind of end of spring, early summer, they should have all the improvements that they would need, including the parking lot addition that they would need. But the other component of it, more so just opening, that could be earlier.
Super. And then the permits
One
that
more
they.
question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Have they gone through the planning and zoning process?
They have for The site plan is being currently reviewed by the department, and I think it actually just had their meeting yesterday for it.
Okay,
The other item, though, they already have gotten, the other component of it is that they had to get an amended site-specific ordinance for that property. And in that case, the council's already approved that, had its public hearing in 2 readings, that has been
Yeah.
amended, and has been adopted by the council. So they are set up after the site plan is approved and goes through the council process. At that point, it would just be pulling permits and making sure the architecture looks good.
Absolutely. And that last question you asked, that was the exact question I was
oh,
going to ask. So thank you.
that must be psychic. The other question, the Greenberg development, where are we at with them being able to get started in the spring?
Their site plan actually was just reviewed yesterday, and they should be able to pull permits hopefully before the October 31st deadline too.
Okay.
But that is completely dependent on the developer.
Yeah.
The site plan though is submitted and is currently under review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's good.
Okay,
It's making progress.
okay. I just would love to see something go in there in the
So we're
spring.
all very, very happy to see that potentially go.
Perfect. Any other questions regarding the update on business changes? All right, thank you very much. That takes us to item B, presentations from the 2024 Missouri Municipal League Conference, which I had the privilege of attending a week ago. And during that conference, I attended 2 seminars on what I will call economic development related activities that I thought might be appropriate to share with the group here. And these were sent out in advance. What I will try to do is not let my voice fail completely with it being the fall. The allergies are hitting me a little bit. So by the time I get done speaking tonight, I may sound like the singer Barry White, if you all remember. So let's take a look at the one, how to backfill vacancies on your main street. So this is something that we've all discussed at length from time to time. And I think there were some good ideas here. And what's new in retail trends, what we find is that customers want to have experience versus just buying a product that they pay for and they get something over the counter, or they pay at the drive-up window and get their hamburgers. They're looking to have some kind of experience that's long lasting. Conscious customers, those are customers who are interested in the impact on the environment of the business that they may be patronizing. Fitness and wellness, this is a big trend these days. And as we all know, there's a lot of fitness and wellness business related enterprises here in Wildwood. Ease of purchase, they want it to be easy to do business with that particular customer, cash, credit card, maybe using other means of transactions. Omni-channel, now what this refers to is, does that brick and mortar business have an online presence? Can you place an order online for that brick and mortar business's products and or services? Loyalty, is there something that rewards loyalty? What we're seeing going into the future is that artificial intelligence is probably going to be driving innovation. And one big trend is that people think that entertainment is fun again. Okay, that's the big thing nowadays. So back during the pandemic, we all had to wear masks. We all had to be 6 feet away from each other. For the most part these days, we don't have to worry about that anymore. So people are out, they're interested in having fun again, doing some things that leave a long lasting impression. All right, so let's take a look at the next slide. Spending on experiences sees continued growth. If we take a look at some of the things that are growing significantly year over year, museums, historic sites, food and beverage places, meaning restaurants, amusement parks and arcades, and the performing arts. Amusement can include such things as golf, fitness, there it is again, bowling. Those areas saw the highest increase from year over year based on nationwide data. So let's go ahead. Now this one I thought was rather interesting. Millennials in the future consumers. So many of us here in this room are baby boomers. There are a few who are not. Baby boomers make up about 21% of the population. What I found was interesting is that millennials make up about 22%. Millennials now are in the workforce. They're starting to earn a pretty good living, so they are going to be patronizing local businesses. Gen Z makes up 20% of the workforce now, so they're coming along and coming into their own. So here's the halo effect, and I referred to this briefly a minute ago. This is where analysis shows that opening a physical store increased online sales in a trade area surrounding that store by an average of 6.9% over a 13-week period following the opening of the store. So this is where online presence and a brick and mortar store can be mutually complementary. And some of these, I won't read all the detail on there, but I'll take you through some of the high points on these slides because I want to respect everyone's time tonight. Retail, real estate challenges can include a limited customer base, e-commerce competition, aging infrastructure, lack of a skilled workforce. I think we've experienced that here in Wildwood, lack of skilled workforce, where because of our lack of easy public transportation into the area, some of our local businesses have had a challenge getting the workforce that they need. Limited access to capital that can exist in a high interest rate environment, economic diversification, limited broadband access. We saw that in the western part of our city, which we're addressing, and we're actually addressing that now in some underserved areas in the eastern part of our city as well. Underutilized, underutilized or poorly maintained common areas. I think it was a walking tour of town center here a few weeks back where some council members noticed some areas that were probably not as clean and tidy as they could be. And then perception issues. Now, perception issues, we all know what that one is. That's where people drive through town center and they're saying, well, town center is dead. All the businesses are empty. And, we did that survey here. When was that? About a year and a half ago, city administrator, where we determined that our vacancy rate was actually somewhat similar to those in surrounding.
Yep, November
communities.
2022, so it was right.
Yeah.
About a year and a half.
Yeah, so it goes into the old saying, perception is reality. What people perceive is, what they end up. Well, let's go ahead. Now we can go on to the next slide. Common areas, challenges that we can have here is they're underutilized or poorly maintained. And this could be lack of investment or outdated design, safety concerns, accessibility issues, limited programming for those common areas, weather considerations, competing priorities that the city may have, car-centric design. There's no place for people to park their bikes. There's no place for people to charge electric cars. Maintenance challenges and lack of cohesive planning on how do we utilize the various common areas that we've got throughout the city. Ultimately, we know that downtown matters. Stick on this slide for a moment. So that's the slide that I think of, when a lot of people think of downtown, they think of the traditional downtown, all the cars parked along the street, sidewalk, 20 feet wide, and no sidewalk dining or anything of that sort, no patios, etc. And then if we go to the next slide, see downtown area, that's a little more friendly, right? So you've got some common areas there where people can stand around and talk. It looks like down on the left-hand side, there might be a restaurant with some outdoor dining available. There's some chairs sitting around. So that looks a little bit more inviting. And next. So this gets into identifying downtown anchors to attract businesses. So types of anchors would include natural assets. Our natural assets might be several parks that we have here in Wildwood. County courthouse, we don't have that, but parks and squares, we have parks, we have what I'll call some squares. We've got the area over here, not close to Starbucks, where you've got the roundabout and so on. And I wouldn't necessarily call that a square, but people think of the businesses that sort of surround that area. Large employers, well, unfortunately, we don't have that. Colleges, St. Louis Community College. And then, that attracts a lot of people into the area. are they aware of what's right next door in that small mall that's managed by the R.L. Jones Company? And I think we've talked about that in the past. Those businesses over there, I'm not sure they get the visibility that they need.
Yeah, that's one of. interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the things I wanted to bring up. I know we have signage regulations, but anybody going up and down 109 has no idea what's back in there. They see the YMCA sign, and now if they are going slow enough, they can see the St. Louis community sign, but in that little plaza there, they have no idea what vendors are back there. So I think we need to look as a city as to how we can be creative in putting some kind of signage that isn't big and huge and taking up all of the space of looking into the complex, but something that alerts people that this is what's in here. These are the kinds of things you can go see and do.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Can I ask a question?
Let's go ahead.
So have there, what kind of comments have there been about visibility by those businesses? Because I frequent there a lot and they're always busy. So what's,
I think every business wants to have bigger signs, more visibility. One thing to keep in mind is that, and it's currently at its infancy and we'll be doing the pilot, but the wayfinding signage is supposed to address that very thing. It's something
That's
that's
good.
tasteful, that's
Yes.
created by the city, that can be maintained by the city, so it's always gonna look nice and it's not gonna be very big. But what a good example would be maybe putting it at that intersection at New College Ave and 109 would potentially have that sign in the right of way that would show, it would have an arrow pointing forward. If you're coming northbound on 109, you would see a straight arrow going to the YMCA, the right arrow to the St. Louis Community College, and maybe the arrow pointing at you would be the Main Street Square where we could say retail or dining options. It could say retail/dining options depending on what the
Yeah.
occupancy is in there.
Something along those lines. I
we
think that would be
can't-
helpful.
Yeah, we can't necessarily, with those signs specifically, put a specific company name on there, but we can definitely say the type of business that's occupying that area. But the business owners, to answer your question, Councilmember McCutcheon, they've always asked for more visibility, it seems, and the owner of the property, R.L. Jones, has fought for it too.
I think how we done at, what's it called, Snooks Crossing, is that what's it called?
Yeah.
We have that stone monument, whatever, and then we put the different companies on there.
Yeah, the big players in the.
Yeah, and
strip
I
mall.
personally like that. I think that's much more.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the
tangible
brick
sign.
wall, we've got the brick walls already built down there, so if there was some way that we could put signage that indicated something.
As I get compliments about the one up here at Snooks Crossing all the time, and I think that made the business owners happy when that went in there. But I was just curious because when people say, well, they don't have enough, activity or whatever. I've been up there a lot and they're always busy. You always have to wait.
Well, lots of people know about the restaurant that's there, but there's several small businesses in that mall, that shopping center, that people don't recognize or don't avail themselves of, so.
Yeah, the nail place was real popular until a different owner took over and they were always busy. The
We
ice
just
cream
had a
shop,
clothing store go in there and the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
I've talked to him quite often. I know we're getting way off tangent here.
No, it's all right.
Sorry. We'll get into our economic development meeting that we had with our businesses later in the agenda, so we can bring that topic up. Never mind.
I think both on Councilmember Dodwell, Councilmember McCutcheon make a valid point, and City Administrator, I think you hit on it too. My concern would be similar to Councilmember Dodwell's in that you get a lot of traffic from Eureka Pacific coming up 109 in the morning, going past there. My bet, I think it's probably a safe bet, is most of those people have no idea of what's in that area there. people around here may, but a lot of people coming from other communities and going up and down 109 during their daily commute may not know what types of businesses are in there.
We can see what the department could look into, what signage options are currently available. I know they have the one monument sign out there and the retaining wall, but we can see what would potentially be available.
It only says what the name of the
It just
shopping
says
center
Wildwood
is. Mhm. It doesn't say what's available.
We could bring the signage code back here for discussion, if that would be, if the committee wished it.
Sure. We did one small adjustment to that about a year and a half ago, and that seemed to be successful. So maybe there's some other tweaking we can do. Councilmember Mabry, you've got a question
Really just
or a comment.
just climbing on that, I'd like to see I didn't say success, but I'm gonna presume there's gonna be success with increased communication through the pilot wayfinding experiment that we're pulling up. And then gauge that against either a fervor or just a modest enthusiasm with additional experiments, pilots.
In this case, with your permission, Mr. Chair, the wayfinding signage, the pilot of it would only be used right now for the beginning for Manchester and around the Taylor Road area. But if it was successful, that would be a clear next step, would be to potentially put one at Manchester and 109 and then over by New College and the college area in general. So there would be two around that area. So
I'm not throwing you on the spot, but is there a scale order magnitude on which fiscal quarter of which year there'd be the next action or even a
production of a sign,
production and an execution?
I would say that the first sign would be out sometime in 2024.
All right, thank you. Successful retailers would be the next type of anchor. I'm not sure what would fit into that category for us right now. But breweries, we do have Good News Brewing coming to the city. Downtown residential buildings, if Greenberg Development gets underway with their project, we would have something to talk about there. Historic neighborhoods, we have the Route 66 corridor, and we've talked a little bit about how we can take better advantage of that corridor as a draw into the city. Farmers markets, we're doing that. Post office, yes, we have the post office over in Grover, but I'm not sure that necessarily serves as an anchor. But two anchors that don't necessarily fit in up here, although maybe they fit under successful retailers, is the Schnucks and the Deerbirds.
Those would be big. So there was the other one that was like the large employers, that would be a large employer as well. So they're kind of mix of a lot of things. Mr. Galati does have his hand up too.
Yeah, Councilmember Galani, sorry, we kept you waiting.
No, you're fine. I just put it up a minute ago. I was just going to speak to this slide. I know, looking at some of these different things, obviously our opportunity to bring a large employer in here is basically pretty close to zero, right? Some of these things that really drive additional traffic and activity are things that, some of them we have and some of the large scale ones we're not going to have. But the one thing I think that, we're so, as a city, not so much, but I think just in general, there's a lot of pushback when it comes to downtown residential. I've been saying this as long as I've been on council. One of the reasons I actually came onto council was for, making sure that following our master plan that we maximize the development in the high density zone area of Wildwood, which once again is that 2% area, which is including town center, but even more specifically in downtown up along Main Street. I know the North Latitude project includes that, and then the other side of Crestview, which will hopefully become Main Street as well, and then the Greenberg development over there in the heart of downtown. But I mean, with a small town environment like we have and what we're always going to have, the one thing that's really going to drive economic expansion with retailers and restaurants is going to be foot traffic, right? Because the people that come into town center and downtown Wildwood are primarily by car right now. And even some of the neighborhoods that are nearby, they're still driving in to go to Deerbergs to go grocery shopping or visiting some of those businesses like Starbucks and stuff. But if you have the higher density development in those areas, that are in closest proximity to the immediate downtown area, in my opinion, at least, from a business perspective, that's the number one way you're going to drive the positive engagement and the ability for businesses to survive, to come in and then also survive in those locations. Because right now, with strictly primarily, cars coming in and out, that's definitely good, but it's not going to solve the problem alone. And I feel like every time we have the opportunity for these developments, unfortunately, the residents that live in closest proximity to those areas are pretty dead set against any additional developments. And, there's one reason or another. And so I just feel like one side of our, we bite the hand that feeds us, right? Because we know what we need to do, but then we constantly make it as difficult as possible for developers that come in to even present their developments or get to an approval. And then we've just got, a vocal minority of residents that comes in and gets really, really vocal about not wanting the development there. And so I feel like that's our main problem regarding economic development, and it's going to remain the same problem until we figure out how to get every single piece of developmental area in that 2% high density development zone of town center developed at maximum capacity, is my opinion. And until we can figure out how to do that and get that to happen, we're going to continue to run into these cyclical problems of businesses coming in and going and having that difficulty. So just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
Councilmember Galani, thank you for that. I think you hit on something important. That is, many times when we start discussing particular development, there's a lot of at least initial resistance and sometimes long-term resistance from the local community. And maybe it's incumbent upon us to try to find a way to bring the community up to speed regarding what our plans have always been for the town center area. That it's supposed to be high density, that it was always planned to be that way. And at the same time, when we get a potential development that somebody is proposing for the downtown area, it's probably a good idea for us to encourage that particular individual to present pictures of what it actually might look like. Because it's very easy for someone to hear that, for example, there are going to be apartments in the downtown area, and it scares everyone because they're thinking of the apartments they lived in when they were in college, not the high-end units that we would see as part of the Greenberg development. Or if someone proposes a particular restaurant, they think of a fast food restaurant with overflowing trash cans out in the parking lot. They don't think of how it might be constructed to fill in with our surroundings. I think that's something that we can probably do a better job in getting across to anyone proposing a business for this downtown area. If we do a better job up front, I think we can overcome some of the objections of the residents. So thank you for that. Let's see, where are we? Okay, going down through farmers markets, post office, etc. Okay, super. Let's go on to the next slide. So downtown property metrics are obviously important, such things as location, square footage, property condition, co-tenancy, can you have two businesses that are mutually complementary nearby, visibility, access, walkability, parking, etc. And then in this particular presentation, the person who put it together talked about the X factor. In other words, patio and recessed entry into the business, something that just sort of sets it apart from other businesses, or dedicated parking for that particular business. Multiple points of entry. Can you only come in the front door, or can you go in the back door as well, like you can in some eating establishments? Sometimes they'll be set up where you can walk in through the back of the business. Exposed brick, which tends to be look rather attractive. Murals and historical relevance. And I know we talked one time in the past about getting some murals related to Route 66 on the sides of some buildings here in town. Where did we ever go with that discussion?
That's still being researched by the Department of Planning.
Okay,
So we'll be bringing that back once we have a little bit. It also includes more so how, like, putting money towards those buildings as well, and maybe having a unifying concept piece of it too.
so when the Department of Planning is researching some possible murals, is there an issue from a planning and zoning perspective, or is it just determining what type of mural would look the best on the side of a building? What's because I know it was quite some time ago when we talked about that. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
It's a
but-
tough one. It would need further research for like a mural, but it could be considered signage depending on what it is, what the
Okay.
purposes of it is, but we can get back to you with an answer on that, but I would say the biggest concern would be that whatever business it put it up there, it could be considered signage and trying to draw attention off motorists off the road.
Sure.
So in that case, we would probably need to revisit the sign code.
And probably the question that comes up is when we're talking about signage, what are we actually talking about? Are we talking about a sign that advertises that business? Or are we talking about a mural that depicts, you know, a 57 Chevy driving down Old Route 66 through a historical looking picture of the Wildwood area? You know, something that somebody might want to stop and take a look at and take a picture of.
We can come back with the exact. specifics.
Yeah, thank you.
We may
Uh,
wanna just look at what's up and down Route 66 and maybe send to you buildings or addresses that might avail themselves to doing something like that.
Sure. You mentioned something here called activated upper floors, and I think of the room over at Big Chief that they opened up upstairs, which really sort of added something new and sort of exciting to that particular business. All right, very good. So let's go on to the next slide. Downtown properties, so
Types of.
yeah, types of properties here where they've got a boutique space or a restaurant space. So a boutique space, you know, what does the storefront look like? Again, is there a strong co-tenancy with other boutiques or restaurants? They have enough room in the back for storing product. Restaurant space, do they have the appropriate space for all the things that they need in order to pick up that restaurant? Not a lot here, I think, to discuss, so let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So I want to watch our time here. So these are all some businesses that started off as single locations and then eventually blossomed into nationwide chains. For example, if you take a look at the top right in the middle, you see Shake Shack, which started off as a single location in New York City, and they did something unique and different. Sweet Green is a chain, I think that's primarily on the East Coast at this point in time, but they are quickly becoming a national chain. Down in the lower left-hand corner, everybody is familiar with Starbucks. Chipotle started as a single location in Denver, Colorado, and then one somewhat close to home here. If you take a look over on the right, you'll see Jimmy John's started off as a single location over in Charleston, Illinois, in close proximity to Eastern Illinois University. And city leaders do to help. So let's take a look through here. Think like a developer, think like a property manager. Identify your downtown team. And so here's a question I have. If someone drives through our city and sees an vacant storefront and thinks this might be a great place for a business, is there one point of contact in the city that that person is directed to? Gina,
Mhm.
okay, that's what I thought. So next question, does everybody at City Hall understand that if they receive a call like the one I just described, it should be routed to Gina first?
Yep.
Perfect, okay, very good. All
And that
right.
was, there's with your permission, Chair, there's
Yeah.
a form on the city website on the Live Work Play page that if it fills out, it does give a notification to myself and Gina, but then Gina would return the call. Well, as soon as the next business day, so.
Good, thank you. Identify your downtown team in terms of, backfilling, vacant buildings that, the mayor, the city council can be involved, the city manager, city administrator in this case, the economic development director, Main Street director, we don't really have that. Chamber of Commerce, I guess, would be the West Chamber, and then also the Wildwood Business Association, local business owners, downtown residents, local stakeholders. Let's go on. So this is something that this particular consultant recommended, which is a property inventory. And we're not really doing this at this point in time, are we?
We have.
Yeah.
Oh, we do,
this,
okay.
yeah. That's
Okay.
And it also is, it's a compilation of the data that is taken from the brochures
Okay,
that we have currently for plazas.
all right, great, good. All right, let's continue on. And so this is a checklist of things that they recommend having in your inventory, and you already mentioned that you got that. That's great. Let's continue. Market analysis. I know we've done some things like this in the past, so I'm not necessarily sure that we need that we need to spend a lot of time here. And customized trading area. These are just reports that are available. Let's continue. Retail focused categories. Health and personal care stores are the hottest trend right now based on this consultant's research. And we have quite a few of those here in Wildwood, actually. Obviously we can name a few of them pretty quickly: the YMCA, CrossFit, J&B Wellness. And then there's some others. There's Magnolia, the soap store, and
Tai Chi massage.
yeah. So there's quite a few of those. So let's go ahead. So walkability assessment. Communities walk score is determined by analyzing 3 factors: walkable distance between boundaries, presence of a comprehensive network of pathways destined for pedestrians and cyclists, and a variety of restaurants, retailers, service providers necessary for regular life. So what this particular consultant talks about is that a walk time from one downtown boundary to the next that exceeds 20 minutes is not considered walkable. So how would we define our downtown? Would it be the town center area?
Mhm.
So
You go
I
outside of there.
think you can probably, can we walk that in about 20 minutes or pretty close to it?
It'd be pretty close, but yeah, I mean, it depends if you would walk it from lengthwise, it would probably be around that 20-minute mark, but if you walked it widthwise, it would be probably about 10 minutes.
Okay, super. And we do have the comprehensive network of pathways designed for pedestrians and cyclists, so that's a plus in our favor. Variety of restaurants, retailers, and service providers necessary for regular life. We've got some of that right now, but obviously we would like to get some. So let's move on. Now, this just gets into some of the things to consider, which are zoning, conventional zoning, which is, I think, where we fit into right now. We take a look at density use, floor area ratio, setbacks, parking requirements, maximum building heights, et cetera. And what they recommend is, what this consultant recommends is getting involved in some form-based codes where you have street and building types that could be mixed, mixed number of floors maybe, et cetera. And you sort of see an example of that over on the right-hand side. And maybe we do a little bit of that now.
Well, that's very similar to.
We do,
town
so-
stuff.
Yeah,
So in this case, just an example, I mean, we have general zoning classifications here in our town center, but our town center is actually a zoning designation in itself, so you can layer in town center because we have our own architectural guidelines just for the town center, so you can consider that another layer on top of the traditional zoning. And then if you actually get down to the property level, we actually, most of the time, have a property site-specific ordinance for that property as well, allowing specific use. So in that case, it gets pretty granular, especially when you start bringing in a development. that's when you can start talking about like a planned residential district, planned commercial district. And that gets into the form-based code where you're adding, where the city starts getting more power over how many trees you plant and what the landscaping looks like and how that retention area is going to be designed. That can't be done with traditional zoning, but can be done when you start looking at a planned district.
Perfect, good. All right, next, please. And here they just talk about an overlay zoning district, and I think we've had some discussions about that before,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure we need to talk a lot here. Maximize public spaces. We do prioritize pedestrian activity downtown. We talk about creating streeteries and parklets. That can be open for interpretation.
Well, I think we've done some of that
Yeah.
along Manchester Road, just with some of the developments we've done in the most recent roadway improvements that we've made with the wider sidewalks and the ability for vendors of any kind to be putting things out along that walkway to promote their businesses, things of that sort. So
Okay. Good.
we
Next.
just have a very long Manchester Road.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Not 4 city blocks.
Cost benefit infrastructure solutions. These are things that, we get involved in to varying degrees. Parking, wayfinding signage, we just discussed that. Lighting, I think our lighting is pretty good. Holiday decorations, we do that. Marketing, we're ramping up on that very, very quickly here due to Gina's great efforts. Events that sell who you want to be, we do that with Celebrate Wildwood. We do that with the Tour de Wildwood. We do that with some of the other activities that we have underway. Yeah. Let's move on. And then they just talk about identifying and marketing your opportunities. And let's go ahead and continue here. Let's go to the next slide. So what you see here, this is down in Birmingham, Alabama. And you see over there on the left-hand side, the city of Birmingham puts a sign in a door that just says, if you're interested in this property, scan the QR code and contact us. And I don't know if that's something that we want to try to get involved in. I know right now, if somebody looks at a vacant building, they're probably going to see the property management company's sign there.
Yep, typically you're gonna see it, and that's the one type of signage that actually is kind of exempt from our strict regulations on signage, is that people can put the property management company up, and I mean, you see it in Teleca's windows, they'll put it right in the center of their window, who to contact, and it should have the broker's direct cell or phone number with their email address as well.
So the suggestion that was made with this type of signage that you see here from the city of Birmingham is that this would be a way that someone gets in touch with Gina and says, hey, I saw a property at a particular location. I would like to open whatever it might be, a wine bar or something of that sort. And she might have the opportunity to say at that point in time, I'm really glad you're interested in this property. We have another property that, based on the information I have, might be better suited to your particular type of business.
So in this case, it's not, we can definitely do something like that. The one question will be, will the property owner or the management company allow us to do it?
Yeah.
We would have to pretty much put our sticker or whatever we would like to place on there next to or in lieu of what they would be putting on there. The question here, though, instead of, we would be kind of manning the field and knowing who's interested versus what we're being told by the broker. So it probably produce more information, and it could be very positive. It's just that the property access will be the biggest hurdle there.
I guess what I see as a scenario where somebody has an interest in a particular property. They contact the property management company who gives them a tour of the property. And they say, oh, well, this may not fit after all. Then would that property management company say, well, maybe we have something over in Ellisville that would work. And now we lose an opportunity.
And that they do have an incentive just to do just that. The main thing is we try to stay in touch with our the brokers that are leasing out these properties. And the hope is if they get an interested party at all, they should be communicating that with us, and we check in with them pretty regularly to see what kind of updates they have, who's been looking. Are they being transparent fully? We do not know. But we do communicate with each of the different property owner brokers here right here. So in this case, I mean, we could definitely do this. I would just say we would have to get permission from the property owner before placing a sign.
Maybe a better thing to do would be to invite property owners to this meeting every 6 months or something, and just ask them how things are going, how can we as the city help? How can we work together to promote our particular site? I know we've done that in the past with some groups, but not all of the developers have wanted to participate in that. They'd rather just do their own things, so it kind of.
That is some of the problem, and we do invite all the brokers and the contact info we have for the owners. The owners are typically out of state. They're like large
Yeah.
investment. You can't even really find who actually owns it. You just know the address from some of the items that we have to send out. But the other component is we do invite to our business forum each time all of the property brokers. The one interested party that we sometimes get is R.L. Jones Properties, but all the others typically do not attend those meetings with us, but they do like if I give Intellica, for instance, a call, they'll typically return it within a business day. This would be kind of looking at it from a way of how do you cut around them to get the info. So we know every single interested party versus just the ones they're telling us. I think there's definitely value in that. Cause like Mr. Rodenberg did say, I mean, if they have another property elsewhere and it doesn't fit here, they're
Yeah.
going to send them elsewhere.
I think one of the things that we might be able to interest them in is that if we pursue this type of program by putting I'll call it a city sticker in the window, for lack of a better term, then how that would help them is that if somebody contacts Gina, she can sell them on all the benefits on living in Wildwood. And increase the opportunity that potential business owner is in fact going to open up something in that particular property. I mean, versus, so we're not intending to go around them. What we're trying to do is find a way to enhance the opportunity to help them close that deal and get that tenant to actually open the business in that building. What are some of the other committee members think about that idea?
I can just off the top of my head think, here's somebody going, well, Wildwood's, there they go being difficult again, which I don't ever think we're difficult with developers in the first place. I mean, they know our rules, they know our regulations, blah, 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 and if they choose to come here, then that's the framework they have to work in. But when you hear somebody say, oh, well, Wildwood's too difficult to work with, I never hear any specifics of what that means. But adding that piece onto a door, I could hear some of those same people saying, oh, look what they're trying to do now. They're trying to make it more difficult for us to move in here. That's not your intent by any means. But I think the same naysayers that do that with developers are going to do that with assistants trying to sell real estate as well.
Mr. Chair, to add
City
on-
administrator, yeah.
to add on to that, one thing, and this is perceived, but one thing is too, I do believe that in conversations with the brokers, when asking about, how is the tours been going and things along those lines, they are somewhat hesitant to provide the information of the potential tenant before they actually lock them in on a lease, or, because I think there could be that whole mindset of the city is kind of out to get business when we're not. But there is that idea of it. And they think that if we were to get a hold of them, we would just talk about, oh, well, your sign can only be this big or so. So instead of spinning on the positive benefits. So there is a perception with some of the developer interest that we may not be the most pro-business city where we're gonna let a business pop up anyway. So where this ties in here is that we put that QR code up, they may look at it as, are we just trying to look at this from its perspective? Is that a permitted use that you're looking to use there? Like, for example, a candle shop comes in, like, I know Magnolia Soap and they sell some candles, but they say they were going into that Deerbergs area, we had that sticker up. They might, even though it works there, but they might not have wanted to let us know that because what if that use wasn't permitted? That's the type of thing that the broker, at least what's been told and communicated to the department, is that there is worry that the use might not be permitted or the signage might not work. They want to get the concept on paper before they bring it to the city for consideration.
All right. Yeah, I think probably whether or not a program like this would work has to do with how we implement it. Councilmember McCutcheon's point, it could be perceived as us trying to be very controlling from the outset regarding the type of business that goes in there versus our actual intent, which would be to help promote that particular location and promote all the things the city has to offer so that potential tenant, wants to in fact rent that location out. Councilmember Dalrymple.
Maybe if we took it the other way and instead our current businesses, what can we do to help promote them so that we have a good relationship with those businesses? I'm kind of thinking if they feel like they're being well taken care of, which I think the majority of them do feel like they're being well taken care of, then they will reach out to other individuals who are looking at facilities here as well. But obviously each business is dedicated to their own existence and their own success. I don't know if we had a specific meeting of the individuals over at Deerbergs Plaza or at Schnucks Plaza where we've now got open seats. I don't know what the city could do to help in that process because it's really incumbent upon the owners of that property to market that property. And I don't know if we ever had any discussions and ask those developers, is it really hard for you to rent your property here because it's in Wildwood? I've never asked that question. I don't know.
With your permission.
Absolutely.
Sure. Those discussions, we've definitely had those, and the main feedback that we get, visibility is always a concern. They very much think this is a little bit more surface level, but the signage is too small on these retail plazas. They don't like the fact that the signage isn't internally lit, but that's with signs. But the other component, and these are two major items that they bring up, is that we do have pretty large setback requirements, unless you're right here in the center of town center. That's a problem. Back to visibility. Access to the highway is something that's brought up continuously, and just the number of cars that are here in town center. That is the biggest concern though, is that we have around approximately, and they've done studies, it's around that too, about 22,000 cars that frequent the town center on Manchester or Main. And if you add them all up, about 22,000. They're looking to see at least 45,000 to bring in franchise level business. So in that case, that is usually something to keep in mind, is that if you don't meet that 45,000 cars per day threshold, they don't even give the call. At that point, they don't even consider that city or that area as an option. Until you hit that threshold, then they'll start considering it. So they're not even looking at, they don't even get to like, hey, our median income's fairly high for the area. And that, quite frankly, there's a decent amount of density, but the main thing is they're checking how many cars are gonna be driving past that storefront each day. And typically it does not reach the benchmark. I know that's been a big point of contention with the owners, well, not the owners, but the broker for where Benedetto's was located.
Perfect. Good, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Recruiting retail downtown, existing businesses within or near the business district, emerging, we talked about that, emerging entrepreneurs. existing local or regional businesses, and then the national chains. And to a certain extent, we've already answered the question on the national chains based on the car traffic through the downtown area. Backfilling vacancies. The good news about tough economic times is they breed ingenuity. Property owners and city leaders need to think inside the box. So we've got subdividing, short-term leases, pop-ups and incubator spaces, are all possibilities for trying to fill vacancies. Let's go ahead and continue on here. Local ordinances and incentives. I think we talked about this already a little bit. Local taxing, increment financing, upper floor sprinkler grant program. I mean, these are all things that some other cities have done. Historic tax credits, National Register of Historic Places, that sort of thing.
We've used that with some businesses here in town already.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Code enforcement, we can probably talk about this one at length, but I don't, we don't necessarily need to, I think, for purposes of this discussion. Councilmember Mabry.
Yes, it was rather pointed that at this slide during the presentation, the consultant thought it appropriate to say, okay, who knows what the most important ultimate factor of city success in ongoing businesses? And first thing I thought of before the individual said anything was that's where you show businesses that is cooperative and is as much as you'd like to collude with them in their success, Wildwood's going to be known as the code enforcement maestro and guru, not henchman, but we're going to guarantee that your neighbors are going to be successful by making certain that you are mindful of the codes and the requirements, and that we're not out showing all the residents that our code enforcement is weak sauce. Well, I've detected that as a resident for 36 years. I see things that that's been like that for 2 months, and that's 2 months too long. I'd be out there the next morning with an injunction, and here's your schedule of fines, pick your poison. I don't sense that, and I feel convicted enough to be not ashamed to bring that up. This really struck home with me when the individual said that.
Can I
That's all.
take it back?
Yeah.
I think you're 100% correct. I get residents calling me and complaining, and it's not just Ward 5 residents about, people keeping their trash cans out in front, they're parking over the sidewalk, and, just codes that when you would drive through or just want to look out your window, they're staring you in the face. I mean, that one house, it took us, it was before you were here, you might have just been coming in. I mean, there was stench and everything else that was in this backyard, and it took us 5 years. And they finally just decided to move, and that's what finally corrected itself. But our code enforcement didn't stay on top of it. When we asked for, an update, there really wasn't an update. And I've had some residents call me and have conversations about conversations they've had with code enforcers who were not very polite and respectful of the resident that lives there. So I don't know if I'm saying exactly what you were getting at, but I think that's our code enforcement and the process and how it works. So maybe we really need to take a look at just from talking to residents.
Just to follow on.
Absolutely.
It could be as simple as code enforcement department doesn't think at their place to offer means of making their job more effective by having stronger teeth in the enforcement, having a more urgent timeline in enforcement, reinforcing persistence, and what I like to call professional assertiveness in executing the requirements.
All right, very good. Oh, city administrator,
I can
Lee,
follow up on
sorry.
that. We can have a discussion with our code enforcement team. I just wanna mention, we do have 2 code enforcement officers. I guarantee they're working. And we can definitely have a discussion with them about maybe having some stricter penalties. One item to consider though, once we do cite the individual, there's a maximum penalty that was implemented back a couple years back. And then once we put something off to the courts, we have to stop touching it. We can talk to the prosecuting attorney about it, but it is ultimately up to the prosecuting attorney to prosecute the case. And in this case, you know, in my position as a city administrator, I cannot call the judge and say, hey, we need to speed up this case. That would be very ethically wrong. So in this case, we do, you know, and Mr. Vunich, our director of planning, does harp on this too, but the goal is compliance. So there is instances where we'll have them go out there, you'll get the warning, and typically you'll get a follow-up 10 days later if it's not been corrected. They get 10 days and then they're cited. So it's happening. In this case, it could just be sitting in court currently because we can't, unless we can abate it, that would be the only situation, but that would have to prove to be a nuisance, which is causing a public health issue, or it's creating dust, or someone could trip on it, then we could go in and fix it if it's being used. But if it's just someone has tall grass and it's not impacting someone, in that case, or a trash can or something like that, we cite them and it goes to court. But in this case, we can definitely strengthen the teeth or maybe the timeline of it. The problem is the state establishes the penalty that goes in on these minor violations and major. I mean, some are, it's the same for each of them, which is, it definitely hampers our ability as a city.
We're working on one in a homeowner issue in our ward. That nobody's lived in the house for probably 15, 20 years. And it'd be great if you could just take a bulldozer to the place, but it's his house,
Is that funny?
Point Clayton. Yeah. Used to be yours.
There you go. Forgive me.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's move on here. I'm not sure how many slides we have left in this
Yeah.
presentation.
We got other topics to talk
Yeah.
about.
That's it.
Okay, questions on this. So, anything that strikes anybody from this presentation that they want to pursue? I just thought it would serve as a good way of generating some discussion here in the group. Some of the things, I'm actually encouraged by a lot of the information I saw here when they talked about walkability, when they talk about different types of, I guess I'll call it zoning that you can have to attract businesses into an area like we talked about in the town center.
Well, what you said, it sounds like there's a lot of things that we already
Yeah.
have in place,
Absolutely.
which is a positive. We just need to get enough population in here, so when people complain about the smaller home sites going in here in town center, that's actually a good thing because it increases the population around these centers and hopefully increases their performance, their profitability, just as Mr. Galani was stating earlier.
I think too, you have to just be real with the fact of our location. I mean, we got Baldwin and Ellisville, we've got Eureka, we've got Chesterfield. You know, they have national chains within their own communities, just the fact that where we're located. I think sometimes we forget that.
You can look at a city like Ladue. Ladue doesn't have tons of big box shopping centers in it. It's got local grocery stores, it's got small businesses, things of that sort. So I think that's where we can head, and we have tried to do so with this part of town center and what's over by the community college, increasing some signage capabilities that will draw some people in may help. We'll just have to take a look and see.
Very good.
I think the fact that our town center is so strong now, I mean, it's not a contained unit like it is in other cities.
Mhm.
I mean, we are just really, our town center is huge. It goes everywhere in Wildwood almost. And I
And maybe there, and that's with your permission, Chair.
Sure.
That maybe is, I like that, well, I don't like that it's all spread out, but maybe there's a value in making a clear and defined distinguishing the two, because really what we're talking about here in some instances, town center technically is a zoning classification, and we have our own architectural guidelines on what can be built here, zoning classification. But what we're really talking about when we're talking about like our town center, when we're picturing the pictures that were shown in that presentation, we're thinking of Main Street and Taylor Road. Manchester's kind of our historic corridor, but you're really thinking of, if you extend Main Street, this portion of it, and then you got Taylor Road. So maybe it's something where we're trying to define what those two things mean, one
I
being,
really think, I think that's correct. I do.
and in that case, maybe there's some additional effort that can go into that, but if you see that apartment building come up, that's gonna be something, and I think, with the park coming in here very soon. We're going to see more cars coming down Main Street. Question's gonna be, you're not gonna like turning around, so that's something to keep in mind too, but so we might be moving pretty quickly to cut through. But the other piece of it is, really, especially with these things all kind of happening, culminating the same year, potentially having that broader discussion of defining Main Street and Taylor versus town center as a whole, but you don't want to isolate the businesses, everyone that's over off Manchester as well.
No, but I think people just have the perception that just what you call town center is town center. They don't think about Sunny's or, our Big Chief, or when they take about
Three
town center, and
French
somebody
Inns.
has a conversation about it, it's usually right this area. So I think perception has a huge role, and I think we do need to define what it is we're focusing on.
So I see Councilmember Galani has his hand up.
Yeah, the dog's gotta bark right when I'm gonna talk. I was just gonna reiterate a little bit for, I think we have to come to terms with what it is we're trying to achieve with economic development when we talk about it, right? Because once again, I know we don't have the highways here, and we don't have the big, corporate, employers and that kind of thing, but we have to either say we're gonna be a rural type, nature, woodsy, no development type of thing, and we have our rules, and developers understand that, and if they want to come here, then they got to play ball with our rules, and we're gonna make it hard on them, and that's fine if that's what we want, but then we shouldn't be talking about economic development as something we're interested in, because we're not. So we're having a conversation where we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. So if you want economic development and you want a thriving downtown district, there's no such downtown district anywhere around here that doesn't have rental opportunities in that downtown area, whether you talk about Chesterfield, Ellisville, Baldwin, Eureka, Ladue, Clayton, Webster, Kirkwood, name whatever you want. There's a thriving residential area in the downtown area that's high density, that's developed, and that brings in traffic and retail and restaurants. And that's the only way you're going to have economic development. And in the, 5 years I've been on council now, almost, we've gone around in circles, and we've watched storefronts closed, we've watched vacancies, we've watched restaurants come and go, and we've literally been talking in circles about the exact same thing over and over and over again in economic development and on council. And we never make any progress, because when it comes to doing what we need to do to actually implement the action that's going to bring in the change that we say we want, half of the people don't want to support that, and they speak against it, and they say, we have our rules here, we don't want development. And people say, there's not naysayers, there's a fact that we block development and we're not friendly to developers. That's not a myth, that's not a notion, that's a fact. And you can ask any developer in the St. Louis area and they'll all tell you the same thing. What we need right now is Main Street to be opened up all the way through. We need both sides of what's now Crestview Drive fully developed. at maximum capacity. We need that area next to the theater with the same, and that other area down at the corner of the roundabout at Old Manchester and Taylor Road. And that all has to be developed full capacity, high density. And I know the people that live in right next to those are going to fight it and say they don't want it, which is okay. But then let's not say we want a thriving downtown district, because we don't. You can't have both sides of it. You got to go all in and make it happen, or it's not. Or we're going to continue to see restaurants come and go, and these vacancies. And keep in mind, guys, like, we're in a relatively thriving economy. We have been for the most recent years, right? COVID, a lot of people were at home, but there's been a lot of money. The markets are doing well. Businesses are generally thriving. And we're starting to see that slow down. Wait till we hit a recession or some significant economic pullback, which is probably likely in the coming years. You're going to see a lot more storefronts close and more adversity. And I'm not trying to be a naysayer and be negative. I'm a business person. I understand how business works, and I've watched it, and I've been a part of council. I've been a part of economic development committee on and off throughout the course of my tenure on council. And I just feel like we always go around in circles, and we have a lot of good ideas and we say a lot of good things, but nothing ever comes of it, because the one major component that needs to happen, half the council's against, and there's a vocal minority of residents that are against, and they're the ones that show up at all the meetings and scream from the rooftops. And so, we claim trying to get development in there, but we put these people through the ringer, and most of them don't even want to mess with us anymore. And I've been saying this same thing for years now, and it doesn't seem to resonate, and we never seem to go anywhere. So yeah, that's why it's just frustrating to me when we have these conversations, because I know the people here are want to see, and I know the city staff is clamoring to try to build economic development and work hard to do things, and they're doing their best. But at a certain point in time, you got to build it for them to come. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox now.
In line with that, Mr. Giuliani, if you look at Greenberg development, how many months has it been since we were told that that development was going to go before planning and zoning? It's been about 10 months now. Yeah. Why so long?
I think Greenberg had a financing issue as a company, and they're shutting down, and then they were regathering additional financing to get back.
Okay,
The Department of Planning had just received the initial draft of the site plan in July. So until we get the site plan, you can't take it to the planning zone.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's been an ongoing yearly thing. That's not just been 10 months. I mean,
Oh, well,
And development's
he's
coming
brought,
going,
yeah,
coming
he's brought in different developers and things like that. I just didn't know if our processes caused so much delay that the developers backed out, similar to what you were talking about. And are we gonna have the same issue with the current Greenberg?
With the department can mention this, and I can't speak for the planning department, but the city has in every case expedited the process for that development.
Okay,
Based on
good.
the council's feedback, it being critical. So in this case, as fast as it could get there, it has been, based off the feedback we received from council at the council meeting when it was initially.
And I think also just using, I'm gonna go back to the Latitude North place. And I'm not speaking in support or against it on that particular thing in this forum, but I'm just saying, that developer had previously brought a project to the city years back that was a much lower density project that was villas, right? And what everybody says they want. And it was actually very far along through the approval process. And then a new council came in and killed it because they didn't want it development. And now we've got another development that's there from the same developer that's a lot higher density, but it's a lot also, I think Councilman Rottenberg brought up earlier, it's a high-end development, right? And so I just feel like we go through these iterations and the councils change over, and like the process that we go through on all these different things takes a lot of time. Like, just look at the reserve over at Old Manchester and 109. I mean, that whole potential project has been in limbo for 7 or 8 years. You know, and the developers have sold out to other developers throughout that course of time, and those families that are trying to sell that land, and they're not wealthy families, and they've invested almost $1 million to the city infrastructure to build out the sewer system, for which Town Center wouldn't be able to function at the level it does today without the investment they've been making over the last 19 years, with no ability to benefit from it because they don't have any development on their property, but they're paying for it. And they did that to help the city. And we've made it so difficult for any developer to get the approval to go through there that they haven't been able to sell their property all these years, right? And so thankfully now we finally have a site plan that's approved, and hopefully we can get that moving forward. But I'm just saying that's an example, but it's just this continuing cycle of very, very difficult landscape for developers to navigate when they do want to do a project. And so I think that has a lot to do with the council, because it's constantly changing over, and there's differing opinions, and what might be X way through the process gets stonewalled, and then a whole new group comes in and decides they want to take it a different direction or whatever it is. But I'm just saying that I think that's the number one thing. If we do want a thriving economic center, and we do want to see things go in the right direction, we have to bring more people to the table, and there's only one way to do that.
Thank you. All right. Since there are no other questions or comments, I'm wondering, City Administrator, it is now 7:20, and we have several other things that we have to discuss here yet this evening. The second presentation, I'm wondering if we could just maybe delay that if there's no objection until maybe a future meeting.
Yes, with your permission, Chair, and I guess could we get a motion to bring that back at the next meeting?
Oh, and one thing I will add is this second presentation that we will be delaying to a future meeting is only about 1/3 the length of the one we just went through. So hopefully, in case any of you were worried.
Well, it's a good topic.
So, do you want a
The
motion?
the
to do that?
department would recommend, if that's the wish of the committee, to have a motion to postpone until in the November meeting, since budget will be in October.
All right,
I'm sorry, to November meeting?
November meeting, since, well, you know, that's
so would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make said motion.
Motion from Councilmember Dodwell, second by Councilmember McCutcheon. All those in favor of the motion to delay the review of the presentation entitled Reimagining Economic Development Through Tourism to the November meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, now we move on to Ready for Action, Biking and Walking Benefits Program. City Administrator Lee, did you mention that Mr. Scheer was
Mr.
possibly
Scheer
going
was-
to be here tonight?
Yeah, he was gonna be here to provide input, answer questions, things along those lines, but we do not see him today.
So do you,
In this case, I would request a postponement just so we could have Mr. Share present for the event, unless you would like to share some items on it.
no, I don't have anything to share regarding that, so do you need a motion to that?
Yeah, let's
effect?
go ahead if we could, Mr. Chair.
Motion that we postpone to a future meeting to be determined.
Thank you, Councilmember McCutcheon for that motion, and Councilmember Mabry seconded. So postponing the
Councilmember
discussion.
Dodwell said.
Oh, I am sorry. I am
Councilmember
sorry.
Dodwell.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay, who was the second?
Mr. Mabry.
I don't feel so bad. I've done that too.
Yeah, so, motion has been made and seconded to delay discussion of the biking and walking benefits program to a future meeting to be determined. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstentions. All right, motion carried. My apologies.
That's okay.
Okay.
I didn't take offense.
Moving on to under Ready for Action, the 30th anniversary mailer. 30 decals, 30 deals for 30 years.
Thank you, Chair Attenberg. In this case, based off the feedback we received from the 2024 Fall Wildwood Business Forum, the department's been kind of cooking up some ideas to help. This is a little bit away from business recruitment, but more so business retention, taking care of what we have. And I think that's something that is within our control, like a Ladue. You might not have the biggest change in the world, but maybe taking a step back and seeing if there's additional engagement measures we can have with the businesses that currently help us, have some options here for our community. And this kind of plays into it. So this would be this is a concept. We didn't want to go too far down the rabbit hole without discussing with the committee tonight. But as we're approaching our 30th anniversary, we're going to be putting on a 30th Celebrate Wildwood event. It's going to be a branding mechanism. It's going to take a lot of resources, but we're already doing it for the 30th. So we're trying to tie in a business component to it. And how that could work is potentially having an opportunity for all Wildwood businesses, as long as they have a valid business license, just like we do our new resident packet where they can submit, now they can submit either info, graphics, or it can be a coupon. It can be whatever they want as long as they're a Wildwood business and it is appropriate, content appropriate. It's not. So in that case, we already do that for the new resident packets, but this would be a citywide specified mailer that would be celebrating, kind of honoring the city's 30th anniversary for incorporation, but also including, 30 deals. It's kind of a catch-22, but it's 30 for 30 is what the Wildwood Celebration Commission has kind of been hitting on for next year's celebration, but also next year as a marketing strategy. So this would almost probably be rebranded like a 30 for 30 discount mailer. So we would have to play with the words a bit, but we'd want to correspond with the Wildwood Celebration Commission and most likely the Planning and Parks Committee as well, since they'll be heading up a lot of the branding for the 30th anniversary. That being said, how it would look, you have a kind of a concept of how this would be broken out on the second page. You'd almost have an intro where you'd have the Wildwood 30th anniversary logo, kind of an introduction, but really taking up the majority of the space. And then you'd have something acknowledging, the second page would have something acknowledging the 30th year, why Wildwood was founded in the first place, kind of getting back to its roots, explaining how business is super important to that. Third page, you want to have that event calendar in there, super important to always be broadcasting our events and where businesses will participate. Then area 4 and 5 is where we'd start putting in coupons and residents would be able to show this booklet and the person could cut it out. We'd have to play with the way we put it together. But we would be able to secure 30 different businesses in the Wildwood area to provide some specific discount in celebration and in honor of the 30th anniversary of Wildwood's incorporation. So it would be a marketing campaign for those businesses of themselves. They'd have to be a valid Wildwood business and they'd have to be willing to offer some kind of discount. We would incorporate it if it's more than 30, we could discuss that. I know it doesn't help with the branding of 30 deals for 30 years, but I mean, we can't say no to a business if they're willing to participate. The main thing we were thinking was, could we start reaching out to businesses about this idea if they'd be interested? If we could find 30 businesses that would legitimately provide a coupon just for Wildwood residents, then potentially, and right now we're putting money aside if the committee show endorsement tonight in the budget for next year, where we'd actually be able to purchase and design the mailer. This would kind of be, look at it in two ways. It would be honoring and celebrating the city's 30th birthday. This would also be in addition to our current Gazette, everything else we send out, but this would be more business focused. While also trying to boost up our subscriber list for our e-newsletter. So that's the last page. So tonight, just running this idea by the committee, getting feedback, and if kind of answering some of the questions and engagement opportunities were something that were brought up at the forum. So we wanted to try to approach that.
Councilmember Dodwell.
I think this is a great idea. We've done some similar things to this before. And it's brought a lot of people to businesses that they didn't know were there previously, which is a plus for the business people, or reached out for service providers of, I need to see the chiropractor, or I need to get some advertising done by somebody who's a graphic designer. It could be all sorts of things in there. And then the person, we did end up with this where they traveled Wildwood previously. But I like this idea of using the 30th anniversary and then having the businesses like sign off on it or something. That would be good. Maybe we can afford to purchase little stamper pads for those that are going to be participating.
We did for the most recent scavenger hunt, we had we used the logo for Celebrate Wildwood and we actually had customized stickers for each individual location. So
Okay,
we would be
there
able
you
to,
go.
we could do something very similar to that.
Just
Where they, the sticker also exemplifies you've already received a discount, can't double up. But we also are showing maybe you get, 15 out of the 30 or you get 20 out of the 30, then you get a special prize from the city, kind of like we did with our scavenger hunt.
Yeah, in past years, I know the city had appropriated like $100 in cash or something for the most passport stamps. That was the arrangement for one of them that we did about 5 or 6 years ago. To incentivize the residents to participate in the activity.
Councilmember Mabry.
Yes, if it's a point of honor, when I read through this, there wasn't anything I didn't favor and all steam ahead. At this point, for questions, I'd like to make a motion.
We still have people online.
Any other
I think we lost
comments or
Mr.
questions
Delaney.
on this particular topic?
We do have a quorum. But seems like we
So
lost.
city administrator, what are you looking for from us?
Tonight, just the department's looking for an endorsement and also to proceed with incorporating incorporating this in the 2025 budget. And also moving forward with starting to reach out with business owners to see if they'd be interested in participating.
So would somebody like to make the motion? Councilmember Scott.
I'll move that they go full steam ahead.
Councilmember Mabry.
Yes, I'll be glad to second. Councilmember Dodwell for stealing my thunder.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Granted.
You can do
No,
all the
I
rest of
think-
them tonight.
I'm not sure how we include that into the motion.
No.
Okay, so motion has been made and seconded for the city administrator to proceed with this plan in conjunction with our economic development manager. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We move on to the Wildwood Window Decal Program.
All right, thank you, Chair Ottenberg, and feel free to add anything, Gina, if you'd like. But this is another item that came kind of out of our business forum after discussion amongst the department that could help increase engagement, but also just show the city cares about businesses a little bit further than just sending back. So how this works out, it would be some type of window decal that if you've noticed in other businesses, more small town businesses, if you think about it, you go in and it says like proud whatever city business, or it could say proud local business, something like that. Having a sticker that would be potentially incorporated inside of the window space for each retail space that would have the Wildwood logo included on it, and it would say either, proud Wildwood business, or we could come up with the slogan together. But the more important piece is when a business comes in and renews its business license or registers for comes up to the city and applies for a business license and we issue it, this would be a sticker that would come with it. And it would go directly in the windowsill, would help promote the city with its logo, but also would help, we could put in a shop local component. Something we were talking about was eat local, shop local, unwind, something like that. Eat, shop, unwind, Wildwood type of alliteration, some kind of mixture. But the idea is when someone gets their business license, they typically think they're just getting paperwork. This would kind of add a little spice to it. It would welcome the business into the community. It would almost be like you got this sticker. It means the resident that goes in knows, oh, this person's up to date with their business license with the city and is on good terms. And that also kind of helps give some establishment to that business in the community as well, because then they know, oh, they've definitely been checked out by the health department. Oh, they've been, I know that there's no, electrical issues in this building, if it's the hotel or things along those lines. So it's another little layer, but it also shows, that the city is actively wanting to partner with these businesses, and that would be every business that has a business license. That is it would two components. You have to have a valid business license in the city of Wildwood to retrieve your sticker. On top of that, you would also need to have an actual commercial space as well, with window space. The other piece is that we allow up to 30% of your window space to be used for promotional signage. This sticker would not go against that 30%. So this would be considered, and after discussing and reviewing the code, the department's confident that since the city is issuing the sticker, it is a city sanctioned sign. And by placing it, you're thereby, it's a city sign and does not take up the 30%. But can still show one unified message when we're trying to push a shop local campaign, which that's something we'll be kind of gearing up for. Obviously for Shop Local Saturday that comes up right after Thanksgiving and then going into 2025. One thing, following up on Mr. Galani's comments is that, we're looking to bring business in, but maybe we can start really pushing home on really engaging with our current businesses that are here and that have shown, staying power within the city and showing them some appreciation with these type of programs, whether it be, letting them get included in this mailer for the coupon and then kind of a passport idea with stickers, or including them in a one unified message for Wildwood businesses. Both strengthening the ties, but hopefully increasing participation at the business forum, increasing participation in our EDC meetings, things along those lines to help bring everything under one umbrella. The department's available for any questions.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I may be out of order. Just heads up. So a long time ago, okay, you probably remember this, but we had a really nice, it was the boards and commissions, and it was a sit down buffet, really nice dinner at the hotel. We don't include our businesses in this boards and commission celebration that we do every year anymore. I mean, maybe we should look at something, either bringing them into that or maybe going back and giving them their own event that the city kind of appreciates them, shows appreciation for them during that event. Sorry, what he said clicked in my head, had to get out of my mouth before I forgot.
No, it's good.
Sorry.
Councilmember Mabry.
I don't have it up now, the computer battery died, but I didn't see where this initiative, which sounded great, again, one of those that I couldn't find any detracting factors to pick on. But it made me wonder, and again, I didn't see it if it was included, but would there be some sort of a bogey to throw at this in terms of what you see on Bill's amount of increase the city budget for this initiative?
Oh, yeah, so in this case, this is strictly a concept that came directly out of the business forum. The goal would be to pass it on as a concept and then come back. This goes for the mailer that we would do as well. Both would come back to this committee with items for the budget. So both of these are gonna add cost. Determining how much would be the next step.
And then whatever that cost is, because nothing's free, part of that presentation would be, here's our projected ROI in terms of either goodwill, which is worth money, or increased sales tax or something measurable.
We can definitely have that. For the sticker program, it's a little less so than the coupons. The coupons, you can have immediate return on investment measures because you can tell by how many stickers were given out. You could tell by the number of coupons that were cashed in. You can tell by the number of people that maybe visited a city booth afterwards and showed you a completed or half completed program. And for the scavenger hunt, we collect that paper back. And the businesses would also have that data because they would be showing it on their books. But the window decal program is more of having more like a unified message. So when we have a scavenger hunt, we say, take a picture next to the Wildwood sticker at each participating business. And we would have we haven't created the slogan yet or the keywords. We kind of put an example out there. It'd be a little tougher unless we started getting in geofencing metrics. I mean, we could, if a business took the sticker and put it up, we could theoretically layer a geofence in there and I could tell you exactly how many cell phones walked into the building on each specific day, but that is gonna be at a cost. So that's the only way I could think of measuring for the window. And then measuring that potentially before the sticker goes up and then after as well.
all I was trying to do was think of any way to front load this as a profit center for the city, even if profit is just goodwill, or if it's just more write-ups in the West magazine, anything. Because I think the initiative itself is valuable.
Goodwill for the businesses.
The window, yes, and then, because the other thing with the mailer though, going back to, and I know off topic a little bit, but going back to the mailer, you also would have that page for the subscriber list as well. So if you saw a drastic jump in our e-newsletter subscription, after you mail out the coupon book, that would also show, I mean, that's real value, actually. That the subscriber list is, that's how we communicate, that's how we can get a direct message out to the residents immediately. So that would be a huge number to see where we were at before it was mailed and then where we were at afterwards. That being said, we do have directions on the newsletter, e-news that goes into the Gazette each month, each edition. And we see a slight jump, but it's not as much as you'd want it to be.
So what action would you like?
Oh, tonight, just more of an endorsement of the idea and to come back, and this can go the same with the 30 deals for 30 years, coming back with the itemization of the cost for both these programs, but general endorsement if the committee agrees with the direction. And if not, then saying, hey, let's set this one aside, we'll get back. We'll either come back to it or it's just not a priority at this time.
So do you want a motion or?
The departments would request a motion to kind of on paper endorse this and then to move forward with getting an idea for the production cost and then the design cost for the
Move
sticker.
forward with the concept
Yep.
design, basically.
Yep.
So, okay, all right, very good. Would someone like to make that motion? Councilmember Dodwell. Seconded by Councilmember Mabry. Thank you.
I was team tonight.
Yes, so we've got a motion which has been seconded for the department to proceed with developing more the concept of this Wildwood window decal program. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Then, last but not least, under ready for action, we have the business forum report and 2025 business forum schedule. Let's start.
Sure. I would say, I thought it was a great first forum for me to attend. We had nearly 30 in attendance. I know several council members were there as well, and the mayor. It seemed like those who were in attendance were eager to be there. They wanted to participate, and I felt like the general sense was that they just wanted to be connected as a business community to one another and to strengthen the ties with the city. I mean, a couple of things that we had just previously discussed tie into some of the feedback that we received in terms of, you know, they wanted to be engaged. They had brought up some of the past promotions that the city had done and that they wanted to see some of those things come back. So that was the first proposal put forth to you as sort of an attempt to achieve that request. Same thing with, you know, the signage. That was something that they had brought up and discussed extensively, how they wanted to feel like they were a greater part of this Wildwood community. So that was the hope with that execution. Some of the other things that are listed on here as discussion items, the business directory, I know that's something that has been taken off the website as they get the business licenses updated, but that's something that will be, you know, able to be addressed as we finalize that. So that's sort of another thing that we'll be able to achieve that was requested from that meeting. Some of the notes on here too, we've already sort of talked about, you know, but the main action items under the second page are just the future proposed dates. We'd like to still continue to do the business forums in 2025. We have 2 dates that we're recommending. One of the dates, the fall date, was recommended because the hope was that it would fall after Celebrate Wildwood so that the team who's planning Celebrate Wildwood gets a chance to sort of get their hands wrapped around that one before we start kicking off some other opportunities later in the year. So that's why we put forward a date, January 23rd and then October 23rd. To bring the community back together for some follow-up business forum type of meetings.
Very good. So, any questions for the economic development? Member Dodwell.
There had been mention or request that we perhaps get a subset of the businesses together to talk about the signage requirements and things of that sort. Are we going to be moving in that direction to try to gather some feedback from a specific group and help the city work through our signage challenges?
That was something that was brought up as a challenge that they had expressed concern and wanting to move forward. And I guess I would defer to Chair Ottenberg and the larger council committee here, if that's something that you'd like to move forward with.
Sure, and to expand on what the economic development manager was mentioning, specifically at the recent forum, a gentleman brought up a sign escrow that the city has in place, which I didn't know existed. And it's $500 that a business has to basically pay upfront. And the initial thought was with this sign escrow, and city administrator, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, why do we have to have something like that? Why is the city getting involved? If a business vacates a building and a new business is moving in, the new business should be responsible for replacing the old signage. But city administrator explained to me that where the sign escrow can be used, and why don't you cite the example?
So in this case, I mean, a prime example right now is that a sign escrow was collected for Benedetto's. Benedetto's sign is still currently up. For curb appeal and making it more marketable, we've left it there, but there is gonna come a time where that sign needs to come down. Typically, the property owner is gonna fight back on paying for that since it was the individual business that was the one who put it up. So really, it's just covering the cost to take down or remove wall signage or in that case, different types of signage that they would potentially put up. So that's really what it is. It's a cost that if you leave premise, you leave as a business, and you leave your sign up and you dodge town, it provides the city injunctive relief to be able to take it down.
Okay, so if you as a business complete the tasks that you should have done, do you get your escrow back?
If you're a business that leaves and you take down the sign and it's properly inspected, yes, I believe so. I'd have to double check, but I can't imagine it would be non-refundable. But the main thing is, the hope is you never have to collect on it. That is the key, but so I think it had arisen from having multiple instances of this. I believe from it was like 2005, 2010 areas where we put this together, where we were having to take down signs and pay for them out of pocket because the owner of the property.
Mhm.
But I would have to check and then come back if they would retrieve it, if they take down the sign.
The concern on the part of the business owner that brought this up originally was that when you're starting a new business, especially if you are operating on a rather thin margin to begin with until you develop foot traffic and so on, every dollar counts. And
Mhm.
$500 additional for a signed escrow where you've got $500 tied up just makes it, adds to the challenges of getting your business up.
In this case, and along with the other items, I mean, we can have a full review as a committee of the sign code if that would be requested by them. And I mean, this could be a
Well,
portion
there
of
was
it.
also discussion about making the signs more visible from roadways.
So that would be a change in the dimension and size of wall signage specifically. I know we kind of scratched the surface on this when we discussed temporary signage.
Mhm.
But the main concern with that is if you change the dimension of the signage, it was designed right now for new urbanism, for walkability.
Oh, I know.
We did get some feedback back then. This was a year ago, so things could have changed. But the department got some feedback from a couple business owners. Specifically, one was the owner of Mathnasium, that you change this, if the incoming business can put a 25 by 35 sign up, and I'm limited to the 50 square feet. Their sign's bigger, now you're making me go out and buy a bigger sign to match them. Or we're gonna go ahead and have one weird, it's gonna look strange.
It'll look
There's,
weird.
the uniformity is the key word when it comes to our town center and why we've kept it at a specific dimension. That being said, I think that, we've had enough discussion, we've had the business forum had a lot of discussion arise out of that as well. We can bring the sign code back, that would have to go back to planning and zoning and full council for approval. But maybe it starts here and then can get kicked back over to the planning and zoning commission, then go to council for full consideration for
we-
any changes.
What if we pull together a subcommittee of the businesses? I'm just throwing this out. So that we could get clearly defined what it is they're really asking for before we bring anything to this group
we can have some discussions with businesses for sure, have them come together as groups, especially the businesses of Wildwood group as well, yes. Then bring it back to the committee or,
This committee or another committee, it was a big, it was a rather,
in this case, there's, I'm fine with that as well. And Gina, if that would be something that we could start organizing or coordinating to bring those individuals together, but for
I know everybody's gonna get into busy this time of year, so trying to get it done before the start of fiscal 2025 is probably gonna not be in anyone's best interest, but I think if we could set a plan to do something in January, at least get it organized before the January 23rd business forum,
So
then we
would-
can say we've got this group pulling together.
So would you like to make a motion, a particular motion to what? In January for us to determine how we want to go about reviewing the sign code with our local businesses, or what would you be looking for?
What do you think here?
Or does the city administrator have a particular suggestion on how we might move forward?
well, to create an official committee that'd take an act from the council with the initial idea creation coming from the mayor, but if it's just more so like a normal typical meeting, we invite all the business owners, they come in like a business forum type deal where now this one's more focused in on the sign code. Just a heads up, we're just gonna be talking signage. I mean, I think we'll get a lot of businesses that participate, but we wouldn't be able to have them named as an official committee unless we had council approval. That being said, this also ties in, we're gonna be reviewing the master plan in 2025. It has to be done by 2026. So this would be
We
part
could
of
use
the
that
master
information
planning
to go into
process.
the-
Yes, so our update to our master plan would definitely include if we wanna make changes to our sign code. So it almost kind of goes hand in hand with the process that we're gonna be naturally coming up on at the beginning of 2025. And planning in
Well,
parks.
then
has
I
been
guess
discussed.
my recommendation for something to put on the table to vote on would be to invite local businesses who are interested to participate in a discussion meeting about signage before the end of January 2025. So we understand what they want, what they think they need, what their benefits would be, and what challenges we would have with our current code with those desires.
So do we invite them in here, or do we have the economic development manager contact a number of businesses, solicit input from them and bring it back to us?
It could be both or either. I think that, you know, to make this well-rounded, you'd probably want input from the vast majority. I think this, I hate to say it, but this kind of breaks down to maybe a one question survey. Like open and answered, send it out, we say, hey, we need to know what you want changed about our sign code. We provide a link to our current sign code. What do you want changed? And then every business can provide input until we
I
have
like
that.
that idea.
Yeah, we could have that sent out ASAP. I mean, we could have, since it's such a simple open-ended question and it's just including a link, that could be sent out.
And then we
And the
could find
business
out
needs-
how much push there is from all of the businesses, or is this just one or two people that don't like what they?
And that could, maybe, and I hate to add questions to a survey, but
No more than two questions.
2 questions, that's what I was gonna say, 2 questions, one being multiple choice, so we can get actual statistics involved with saying, you know, the city of Wildwood's current sign code is ... too strict, just right, too lenient, I don't know, that type of answer. Something that gives us pure data right then and there if we wanna pull a report, and then also having an open end explain ... So if they said just right, they're probably not gonna explain it too much, they're gonna just leave it, but people that are gonna say it's too strict, they're gonna go ahead and really get in there, or if it's gonna say too lenient, they're gonna get in there and really explain their perspective, but if the just rights outweigh all them, we'll have a counterbalance. I just don't wanna have people that are upset about this, or about their current sign, or if they think other people's signs are too big, whatever it might be, them to guide the discussion. I wanna have some type of control for specific businesses being able to control the entire discussion.
Because part of the discussion that came up was the location of the sign as much as it was the size of the sign. Because on those strip malls, similar to what we went through over here at Schnucks Plaza or whatever that's called, it's that direction, sorry.
They're wanting the monument signs with the actual businesses listed out. Like, I know Puppingham Palace has gotten that, but they do occupy a pretty large space in that plaza. That would be something that would be very divergent. I know it worked there, it was done somewhat tastefully, but that would be a divergence from what our current sign code would allow.
Yeah, I
Like
know,
naming.
and that was brought before council at that particular location and all of those signs. But I thought if we could get the data from thoughts from the business people. So I think if we just send out a quick little,
Is everyone okay with the 2-question survey being
Yes.
sent out to
yes.
all business owners we have on record?
Mhm.
Along with the link to our sign code, so they could review that.
Yeah.
So are you making a motion that we proceed with a 2-question survey?
I'm making a motion that we proceed with a 2-question survey and we look at the results in our November meeting because we aren't having an October meeting, I understand.
So we'll have one on October 21st to
Okay.
discuss just the economic development portion of the budget.
Okay, yes.
Councilmember Mabry.
I just wanted to get in before motion with a point, especially for the city administrator and manager. I'm listening to this and I'm saying, full steam ahead, with perspective from, protecting what apparently is one grand amount of time and energy that's been put into making our signage requirements apparently immensely different than lots of other cities everywhere, because we have a reputation for being known as a real tough nut on signage, where I don't hear that a whole lot by other places. So that big preamble is to arm this questionnaire with a big caliber gun that really lays out the groundwork. It says, we put an awful lot of energy and cost and time in our master plan, our charter, to making it really onerous to make us look like an Ellisville or worse. So it's gonna be a pretty hard row to hoe, folks, if you come back with a bunch of grandiose plans to scrap the entire thing, make us look exactly like Ellisville
Yeah.
and Manchester and Winchester. And so rein in your curb your enthusiasm and come back with some real world improvements you consider, not just let the sheep run out of the pen and let them run as far and fast as they can. I hope I'm imparting the tone.
That comment was made, at least by me, back to the individuals that were making were questioning our current signage in the economic forum that we have. So I don't think any of us representing the city as a whole jumped on the bandwagon and said, oh, sure, you can put up any sign you want. No, that was not the case.
And that would be something even though we're the Economic Development Committee here, the city has been known to be residential. First, we have way more of our area that's taken up by residential. There's a reason why we're so strict on signage, and it's something our residents. So I think there is a brief overview section you can include in any survey. It would introduce the link to our current sign code, also maybe our guide to our sign code, but definitely prefacing this entire argument in the sense that, hey, you're not gonna be having the big neon message board sign tomorrow right out front of your place, but if there's meaningful, logical changes that could be made. One thing is I don't want
I
to create
think-
bias though.
Circling back, Councilmember Dodwell made a motion and Councilmember Mabry, were you seconding the motion or were you just making it?
Yeah, I'd like to, if you're making that motion now.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, very good.
I think part of what we trip over as a city is that we come down like this on businesses instead of come down like, here's what we would ask that you do in order to be successful. I'm not pointing to any of our economic development managers, but we have to figure out how we bridge what goes on in P and Z and other parts of the city staff that make it a friendlier process, for lack of a better term. Because I don't wanna be I don't want businesses to leave Wildwood because they got in an argument with somebody over a sign.
All right, we have a motion on the table with a second.
Second.
What is the
And-
motion? I'm sorry.
Pardon?
What's the motion?
Okay, the motion is that we proceed with a 2-question survey and have the results ready for discussion at our
December meeting because
December meeting.
November
No,
November meeting.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
I
Abstentions, motion carries. And I think the economic development manager needs a motion on the 2 dates that were proposed for the economic forum for next
Approving the
year.
business farm
So,
schedule.
if, Ms. Tart, would you please review those 2 dates again?
Sure, it was January 23rd and October 23rd.
All right, perfect. So do we have a motion to proceed with those 2 dates for the economic forums for next year? All right, Chris made a motion to proceed and who would like to second?
I'll second.
All right, Councilmember Mabry, the motion. All those in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, motion carries. That takes us to not ready for action, update to the economic development guide.
A quick update on
Any
that.
particular comments there?
Oh, just the fact that with the update to our master plan, it's a perfect timing for that. Just a heads up, with signage potentially being a piece of it.
Perfect. Moving on to miscellaneous, any items under miscellaneous? Seeing none, next meeting date is October 21st, 2024 at 5:30 PM.
With your permission, Chair, can I add a quick note
Absolutely.
on this? You will see that it says October 21. If you actually go back to the original calendar, it was on the 14th. But there is a plan to have, and this will be in my CA report this week, and it will be sent out on Friday. The mayor will be calling us a meeting on the 14th of the city council in general, and we'll have a second city council meeting on the 28th to discuss budget. We're doing this because we're supposed to have the second Monday of the month, it's supposed to have a council meeting. We set it up to be on the 28th originally. So we would have time for all the committees to review their sections of the budget and then have that public hearing at the end of October instead of having it in November. That being said, our code does stipulate that you should have that council meeting unless you have a holiday, the second Monday of the month. So in that case, with respect to that and to the traditional business that we'll have and not to have a 50-hour meeting with budget too, we needed to move Econ Dev and Admin PW to the 21st. So same exact schedule. I'll be sending out a revised October calendar on Friday along with these new dates, but October 21st at 5:30, we'll just be discussing the Econ Dev portion of the budget.
So in October, we'll have a meeting for just the budget and then a regular council meeting.
So there will be a council meeting, yeah. So on the 14th of the traditional Monday we typically have on the 14th, that'd be a normal council meeting. It's technically considered a special meeting since the mayor's calling it. But the 28th, we'll have a meeting that's a little bit more geared towards the budget and it will include any emergency items that need to get on there faster than expected. And then on the 21st, we'll have the EDC meeting to discuss our portion of the budget here, economic.
All right,
Yes.
Very good.
So the only thing that's gonna happen with the budget and council is gonna be on the 28th of October.
That's correct. And then it'll have items associated, obviously, with the ordinance approving it, coming subsequent in November, December.
All right, anything else under, well, we covered miscellaneous already. We talked about the next meeting date. We got some clarification from the city administrator. So that moves us to adjournment. Would somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn? Councilmember McCutcheon, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. And I got the names right this time. All right, all those in favor, it's non-debatable. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn? Please say aye.
Huh?
Opposed? Motion carries.